Hey you all, how you all doing today? I hope you're having a fantastic day so far. And if you're not, I'm hoping this little guide, well actually no, it's not little, sorry. It's big. It's a big guide. Anyways, I hope it'll cheer you up a little bit if it helps you out. There is a lot of steps in this guide. I'm not going to lie, there's a lot of steps, okay? But if you love your Sims 3 as much as I do, and you love your PC as much as I do, stick with me. And hopefully we can get your game running as smooth as we can. So this guide is mostly for Sims 3 newbies, and also if you've had to reinstall Windows at all and start over kind of thing. I'm going to try and show you the right way. I'm also going to be explaining what you're doing and why you're doing it, just so you're not like making changes in your PC without realizing what you're doing. And of course, I'll be linking everything below, like programs and stuff, everything that's mentioned. On that note, let's get started. The first thing I need to mention is Windows. So I just recently updated mine to Windows 11 and my Sims 3 would not launch. In my case, it was DirectX 9. I needed to install that. So if you're having this issue, it might be that or it might be something else, but I did leave a link below. So make sure to check that out. Okay, moving on. So assuming that you have downloaded and installed your Sims 3, the first thing we need to do is get Sims 3 to recognize our graphic card. We have to do this in order for the next settings to work. And one of those settings is one of the most important ones, capping the FPS. So Sims 3 didn't come with an FPS limiter, and most modern games do have one. So without tapping the FPS, it can run wild, and with newer GPUs that can run sometimes up into the thousands, which could result in heavy load on your GPU, also higher temperatures and more strain on your CPU, which could ultimately lead to damaging your system components. So before we can fix the FPS, we need to match our graphic cards with the game. So in order to do that, you are going to need this GPU add-on. You can do it manually too, and I'll leave the link below if you prefer to do it that way, but I prefer the GPU add-on. So for this little tool, you'll need to head over to nexusmods.com. Once you're there, you might need to register a free account. It's free and it's easy. So once you've done that, you want to head over to this descriptions tab, and underneath, just check under requirements, the frameworks. So if you're not sure if you have any of these installed in your computer, you can go to your C drive and open up Windows and then look for Microsoft.net and then open up this file called framework and just check to see if you have these files, v4.0 and v3.5. If you don't have them, you might need to install the framework. So whichever ones you don't have, just click on it and it'll bring you to Microsoft.com. There you can download and install that onto your computer. So once you have all the requirements, you can go ahead and download the GPU add-on. Just go to this Files tab, click on Manual Download, click on Slow Download because it's a free account, and it'll download in a zip file. So you want to just save that wherever you save your downloads. I usually save mine in downloads. Then once you've done that, you just want to open up that zip file. And then what you can do is just highlight and drag the application over to your desktop. Once you've done that, you'll have this icon here, and then just go ahead and open it up. And this will pop up here, and it'll say, it'll detect your graphic card right away. So it'll just tell you the vendor's name here, and it'll say found and supported. And then it'll ask you, is your preferred vendor found and supported? Just click yes. You can apply this patch if it is supported. Okay. And so this gray check mark will turn green. And now just click on the green check mark and it'll say patch the graphic card and rules. And now your graphic card is matched. So just close that up. And how you can check, there's two ways. So one way is navigating to your graphic rules in your install file. So your install file is going to be different for everybody. Mine is on a different drive. So depending on what app you use to download Sims 3, so if you used EA or Steam, the easiest way to find out where your install files are, if you don't know, is if you have the shortcut on your desktop, you just can right click and go to open file location and it'll bring you to wherever your install files are. Okay, so just open up your Sims 3 file here and go to game and open up your bin file. So in here, you're going to have the graphic rules .sgr. So what happens when that tool matches your graphic card, it will make changes in this file and it'll save the old file. Just open up the new one and you'll see besides SETI texture memory that this number 2048 has been changed, because if you open up your old file, it will show you that before it changed, it was at 32. So it wasn't using very much memory. So everything's defaulted to using little memory because the game is so old and computers were old at the time. The other way is by starting your Sims 3 game. And once you're in the main menu, just closing. And then once you've done that, you can see if the graphic card actually was matched. So you'll want to navigate to your documents file, open up your documents, electronic art, Sims 3, and then you want to navigate to the device config.log. So just open that up, just use Notepad. So you can right click and go open with Notepad and it should open up. So if you scroll down a little bit here, you'll see the name of your graphic card. So mine is the GeForce GTX 1070 and it'll say found one, matched one.
Then you'll know it's matched. But if you don't see matched one, found one, and you see matched 0, found 0, you might have to open up your GPU add-on again, and you might have to direct the application manually by clicking on this folder icon here and just navigating to your install folder. And then you'll want to click apply again and see if that works. If you're having issues getting the application to find your Sims 3 installation folder, I suggest going back to nexusmods.com and you can download a troubleshooting guide, and there's also a user guide that you can download that will help you out.
So now we're going to dive into graphic card software settings. So because I have a GTX graphic card, I have Nvidia software. If you're on AMD, the software is similar, but I've actually heard that AMD is easier to use than Nvidia. So I'm sure the settings are quite similar though. So in order to open up your control panel, you can go down to show hidden icons down on your taskbar on the right, and you can just right click Nvidia settings here and open it up from there. Or you can go down to the taskbar, search, and just start typing in Nvidia, and it should show up in the menu above. So the first thing we need to do is add the Sims 3 game to 3D settings. So click on manage 3D settings and then go over on the right here to program settings. And here is where you can add the game. So in this drop down menu, you want to look for sims3.exe or this one here, ts3w.exe. For EA app players, you want to add this executable, the ts3.exe. If you're a Steam player or you have the retail version, you'll want to add the ts3w.exe. If you don't see it in the drop down menu, you'll have to go to add here and then browse to your install folders again. So for me, it's on a different drive. So just Sims 3, game, and then bin, and then you'll want to add it from here. So once you have your game added, underneath you'll see this menu here, feature, and then settings. So the first thing we want to change in here is our frame rate. Look for max frame rate, and then you just want to turn this on. And then you want to set it to what your frame rate is for your monitor. So always match it with your max frame rate of your monitor. So whether that is 60, 120, or 144, that's what you want to change it to. For me, it's 144. Okay, so underneath, G-Sync compatible. We'll come back to G-Sync later. Now look for power management mode. Here you want to change this to adaptive, because if you have it on high performance, your GPU will be running at full speed even while it's idling. So we don't want that. Now look for texture filtering quality. Here you want to change this to quality. So what this does is it takes the load off your CPU and it puts it back onto your GPU, and most modern GPUs can handle that. Now the next thing is looking for vertical sync, VSync. So we want to turn this to on, and if you have adaptive, if that's an option for you, you want to turn it to adaptive instead of on. The adaptive setting is a little bit better than just having it on. So what this does is it synchronizes frames with the frames that your GPU pushes out. It will refresh at a higher rate, resulting in smoother transitions. So VSync helps to avoid screen tearing by keeping the frame rate capped at your monitor's max frame rate. The next thing you want to change is triple buffering, and you want to turn that on. This triple buffers frames when they drop, creating a smoother motion visually and helps prevent screen tearing as well. This setting works hand in hand with VSync. So now back to G-Sync. So if you have a AMD FreeSync monitor or an Nvidia G-Sync compatible monitor, you want to turn this to G-Sync compatible. So look for monitor technology, and then in the drop down menu you want to click on G-Sync compatible. And yes, you want to save your changes. So after you've done that, you want to click on apply and go into your G-Sync setup. So in here you want to make sure that enable G-Sync and G-Sync compatible is checkmarked, and then this radio button, you want to click on that, enable for windowed and full screen mode. Select the display you would like to change. So also make sure that this is set to the right one if you have dual monitors, and then display specific settings. So make sure this enable settings for the selected display model is checked. So you also want to make sure that G-Sync is enabled in your monitor as well. So if you have an AMD FreeSync monitor and an Nvidia GPU, these settings will work. If you have a G-Sync monitor and an AMD GPU, well, that's up for debate, but we're not going to go there. So the exciting thing about having a G-Sync or a V-Sync monitor is that it means adaptive sync ready. Overall, what having all these settings enabled means is that for Sims 3 in particular, it will create a much smoother gameplay. Another thing to make sure is set is your resolution. So go over back here to the left and click on change resolution. So always make sure that this is set to your native monitor resolution and that this is set to your frame rate. Finally, the very last setting in your graphic card software settings is these settings down here. So make sure that you're using Nvidia color settings and just check that the desktop color depth is at the highest 32-bit. The output color format is at RGB. Usually the output color depth is defaulted to 8 and the output dynamic range is defaulted to limited. So you can change this up and change it to 10 and change limited to full. Don't forget to click apply. And what this does is brings the colors to life, kind of makes things more vibrant and more clear looking, depending on what kind of monitor you have as well. Now that we're done with all these graphic card settings, we can tweak some settings in Windows graphics as well. So in Windows, we can go to game mode. So you want to just go down to your taskbar and in the search, type in game, and it should come up on the top game mode settings. So we want to go in there, and then you're going to see this on the top game mode. So you want to make sure this is turned on. What this does, it does a couple things. It turns off background processes, like if you're going to get some Windows updates or whatnot, it'll put a pause on that. And it'll also help stabilize frame rates as well. So then underneath, you're going to see graphics here. You just want to click on that. And first, we're going to need to add the game to Windows. And we want to set this on high performance. So first, we're going to go into Browse here and search for the executable again. So you're going to need to go to your install folder again. So Sims 3 game and then bin. You're going to want to add the right executable here. So like we did in the graphic card settings. So either ts3.exe or ts3w.exe. So I'm going to add ts3.exe because I play through EA. So once you're done that, if you scroll down underneath, you should see Sims 3. Just click on it, click on options, and then you just want to make sure this is set to high performance. Then click save. So what this does is for those of you that have like an integrated GPU and a dedicated GPU, this setting is helpful. It forces Windows to use your dedicated GPU for the game. Okay, so once we're done that, you want to just scroll up and then under default settings, you can click on change default graphics settings. Want to go in there, and if you have this option, which hopefully you do, if not, it's not a big deal really, but if you do, that's good. Hardware accelerated GPU scheduling. So you want to make sure that that is turned on. This setting can help you with low to mid-end CPUs by passing on some tasks to your GPU. So you might not notice any difference in game, but if you've noticed your CPU has been running high while playing, just check Task Manager and see if it's helped. So after you're done with all these settings in Windows, then you're going to need to restart your computer for all the settings to take effect. So now that we're done with that, let's open up our CPU and RAM and give the game more room to process. So we need to navigate back to the install folder again. So wherever your install folder may be, back to Sims 3, game, and then bin. And then we want to open up that graphicrules.cgr file again. So you can highlight it, right click it, open with Notepad. So in here, we want to look for steady CPU level. So these numbers right here. So we got uber, we got high, we got medium, and we got low. And this is right under steady texture memory, that same one we talked about a little bit earlier. So we want to leave the 4 and the 3, but then we want to change the 2 and the 1 to 3. So then it's 4, 3, 3, 3. So Sims 3 default settings can make the game run a little slow. So in order to kick it into higher gear, we can tweak these settings. So this benefits the gameplay by speeding up certain in-game tasks by telling your PC that the processor can handle more processes at once by allowing Sims 3 to use the 2 CPU cores it's meant to. Okay, so then after we're done that, we can go up here beside steady texture memory, and this number here, 2048. So we just want to leave this at 2048. We don't want to bring this any higher. So what this is it's the VRAM, so it's the video or virtual RAM of our GPU. So there is really no need to make this number any higher. We just want to leave it as it is because Sims 3 only uses 800 megabytes of VRAM. So this is plenty right here, leaving it at 2048. So once you're done with that, you just want to go up and click on save, and we're done with that graphic rules. Okay, the other thing we can do in here before we close out is we can tweak some settings in the Sims 3 configuration file. So sims3.ini, if you don't see the extension .ini, you can just go up to the view up on the taskbar above, click on view and go down to show, and then go down to hidden files. So you can just turn hidden files on and then the extension should show up. So let's just go into there. Again, you can highlight it and open it with Notepad. So now for the RAM, it's different from the VRAM. The VRAM is GPU, RAM is our computer memory. So under resource system here, you can change this to half your RAM limit. So if you have 4, leave it at 2, 8, change it to 4, and so on. So mine is 32, but I think 16 is a bit of overkill. So I'm just going to change it to 8, and that'll be good enough. Another thing you can do in here is change the dynamic avoidance. So if you scroll down a bit, you're going to see dynamic avoidance, and you're going to see 5 instances of this setting. What this does is helps your Sims to route better around objects by narrowing the space needed. So your Sims aren't standing there forever trying to wait to go by another Sim or an object when there's plenty of room to go around. So this will help the Sim route them around and get them unstuck from that situation, which can be quite annoying. So you can just change these numbers all to 0.1. So just take the 5 off of here and just, highlight it, change it all to 0.1. So you want to make sure all 5 are changed. And then once you're done that, go up to File and then hit Save. All right, so now that we are done with optimizing our graphic cards and Windows for this game, we can finally dive into in-game graphics. So load up your game, and once you hit the main menu here, you want to just go down to these 3 dots in the bottom left corner. Click on that and go up to options, and it'll open up this screen here. Just click the graphics tab over here on the very left, and in here you're going to see a lot of different settings. Now these settings you're going to have to test for yourself depending on what kind of system you have. Nowadays computers are way over spec for Sims 3, so having these all on high may cause a lot of lag and stuttering in your game. So yeah, you're just going to have to tweak this and test it out for yourself. For me, in my setup, I have like a mid-range gaming computer. Some people suggest, like with my GPU, I got a GTX 1070, that I could have this all up on high and it'd be just fine. But I found with my computer, I have to turn some of these down a bit, and it helps a lot. Also for full screen and windowed mode, that's up to you as well. I find that playing my game in windowed mode helps my game a lot. There's a lot of advantages playing in windowed mode, especially if you play in borderless full screen windowed mode, which means that you can play in windowed mode, but you can still have the view of full screen. But you can also tab out of windowed mode if you need to do some multitasking. Also, it helps with taking screenshots and taking videos like this, because having it in full screen for some reason makes everything darker. Another thing with having it in windowed mode, because Sims 3 doesn't have an FPS limiter, you're going to need a third-party app to cap your Sims 3. I know that we change the FPS in our Nvidia settings as well. That's mostly for if you're going to be playing in full screen, that works. And you can go back into there and cap it. If you're playing at your Mac, FPS for your screen might be causing issues, you can turn it down to 60 or 30. I find that playing The Sims 3 in 60 FPS works for me, and playing in windowed mode, like I said, you need to have a third-party app in order to cap your FPS. So I'll talk more about the windowed mode next, and that'll be in the last section of this video. So in here, for the reflection quality, I leave it here on mirrors and water. It works fine for me. And every time you make changes in here, you will have to restart your game in order for them to take effect. Draw distance, I keep mine high. Enabling all of these helps with performance as well. Enable object hiding, enable animation smoothing, enable advanced rendering. I keep my visual effects high, my lighting and shadows high. Tree detail isn't that important to me, so I just have that on high. I keep my draw distance up high. High detail lots can cause a lot of lag for some players, so keeping it at 2 to 4 is recommended. I keep mine on 2, and texture detail I keep up high, and sim detail is very important to me, so I do keep that on very high. There are some other settings here that you can change as well. So going into general settings tab up on the top here, the first setting that you're going to see is edge scrolling up here. So this is if you're playing in full screen, you're probably going to want that on. That's so when you're moving the mouse to whatever edge of the screen, the game will go in that direction. If you're playing in windowed mode, the edge scrolling isn't going to work. You'll have to use the right button on your mouse to move around the game. Keep mine on 12-hour clock. I always turn off the shop mode. Enable lessons is up to you, but turning it off can help with performance as well. Enabling memories, I keep mine enabled, but I also have a mod that helps with not getting so many memory notifications, which can also help the game's performance. And enabling interaction loading screens down here, I always keep that off because it makes the loading time a little slower as well. The other thing you can change in here is your demographics. Enable story progression. You can get a mod that overrides the defaulted story progression, and it helps the game a lot as well with performance. This is how many Sims basically do you want in your town, the population control settings. So the less you have, the better. So this is all going to depend on what save you're in as well, or what kind of save you want to make. I generally just keep mine on pets, and I turn everything else off unless I want to play certain occult like fairies or witches or something. I always keep celebrities off because celebrities are really annoying, and I always opt my active household out of the celebrity system because I really don't like the celebrity system in the game. And like I said, the more Sims you have in your world, the more lag you can have. Of course, like I said, these are all optional, and that's it for in-game settings. Another thing I need to mention is that if you have Nvidia graphic card, every time that you go to upgrade your driver, the settings in here will all reset. So it might be a good idea to just take note of your settings so you don't have to come back in here and try to remember where your settings are at. I'm not sure if AMD does that, but yeah, that's one downfall of this game with the Nvidia graphic card drivers. All right, we finally made it to the last segment of this video, and in my opinion, it's a very important one. Now, if you're fairly new to The Sims 3, or if you're new, you may or may not have heard of this Smooth Patch by Lazy Duchess, head over to this page on Mod The Sims. You're going to want to give this a read through, especially the installer instructions. So just scroll down here to this section, installation. So if you're on Origin, there's special instructions here. Same for the Sims 3 Medieval Origin and the Sims 3 Medieval Retail. But clicking over to the download tab here, for EA, you'll want to download this one here in the middle. So once you're done, open up the zip file. These 4 files you're going to want to put into your install folder. What I do is just I'll keep the zip file open, and then I'll right click on my folder down on the taskbar and just open up another window. Navigate to my install folder, Sims 3, game, and bin. And then yeah, you just want to highlight these 4 files and just drag it over and put it in there. It's going to ask you if you want to replace some of the files, just click yes. Once you have the Smooth Patch installed in your game, you want to keep your bin folder open here, your installation folder, and then you just want to find the tsp patch.txt file. So you're going to want to open this up, and again, you can open it with a notepad, and in here, we need to set the patch up for our game. It explains a little bit here. You can just read through. Lazy Duchess has coded this program somehow to make your game run a lot more smoother and quicker. For my settings here, you can change this like beside TPS equals 1000. You can try it on 500. I put mine on 1000 and it works fine for me, but you can try it on 1000. If it doesn't work for you, you can set it back to 500. If you're playing in windowed mode, you can change it to borderless by putting a 1 right here. And the beauty about playing with borderless windowed mode is that, like I said earlier, you can play like you're in full screen. Now for the frames per second, this is where you get to cap your FPS if you're playing in Windows. So this is the limiter that Lazy Duchess has included in this program. And this is wonderful because not only do you cap it, but somehow Lazy Duchess has coded it so it's more stable as well. I play mine in 60 FPS. You can try 30, maybe that'll work better for you. And if you find that vertical sync is not working properly for you, you can just go back into your graphics settings and turn it off and see if that helps. And so for this last setting here, if you want, you can put a 1 here for the debug. When you start up Sims 3, it'll just give you a message to say that the mod started and it is working. So once you're done in here, remember to save before closing out. And that brings us to the end of this guide. I hope it helps your game. And remember, if you want, you can leave questions or comments below. Feel free. And if you're interested in more performance mods, I am working on another guide for that. But in the meantime, if you're new to putting mods in your game, you can check out this video I published a while back. And until next time, have a good one, guys.